Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, sponsored by Workday. In today's session, we're going to go over machine learning and how it will transform healthcare delivery in the next decade. Workday in 2018 was ranked best in class in the ERP category for healthcare technology. Just a little background on Workday. They were founded in 2005 with over 2,100 customers currently. Workday is a full ERP vendor with over 1.3 million healthcare users and a 98% customer satisfaction score. Being a full platform includes the fact that Workday has human capital management product, a financial product, supply chain management for the healthcare industry, Workday Prism Analytics and benchmarking, and also Workday Planning. For more information, feel free to visit workday.com/healthcare. I'm Mohan Rajagopalan, Principal Product Manager of Machine Learning here at Workday. For the next hour, I'll be your moderator, speaking with our excellent speakers for a discussion on how machine learning will transform the healthcare delivery in the next decade. We will begin with brief introductions, then a 5 to 10 minute overview of the industry trends and machine learning in healthcare. Then we'll begin the discussion with our executive panel about machine learning and how it's impacting their organizations. At the end, we will be taking Q&A from the audience. So if you come up with questions, feel free to drop it into the questions window within the GoToWebinar. We have a team of moderators who are reviewing those, we'll curate them, and then we'll ask it to myself and the panelists at the end. So without further ado, let me introduce our great panel. Joining me are Liz Popwell, Fellow at the American College of Healthcare Executives, and also VP of Strategy at Atrium Health. We also have Kristen Raber, Corporate Director, Cloud Innovation Lab at Christiana Care Health Systems. Thanks everybody for taking thanks both Kristen and Liz for taking the time out of your day to help us with this panel. We have over 1,000 people really interested in learning more about machine learning. As I mentioned, after the trends, we will start the discussion by diving into some questions we have prepared for the panelists. And we'll have time at the end for the questions which the attendees ask as well. Shortly after the webinar, you will receive a copy of the presentation slides to the email which was used for registration. At this time, it's my pleasure to get us started with introductions. We'll start with Ms. Raber. Can you give us an overview of yourself, your organization, and how your health system has been thinking about machine learning?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Raber. I am the Corporate Director of Cloud Innovation Lab at Christiana Care Health Systems. At Christiana Care, our mission is to serve our neighbors as expert caring partners in their health. We are a 2-hospital system with over 50 practices and outpatient services. We serve Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. We are the second largest employer in the state of Delaware, behind only the government itself. We have the state's only level 1 trauma center, as well as level 3 NICU. We are regional centers of excellence in heart and vascular care, cancer care, and women's health. We have about $2 billion in annual revenue, and our volume is that we are about 24th in the nation for admissions volume and 21st for emergency department visits. As far as machine learning and what we're thinking about it, my lab, the Cloud Innovation Lab, is focused on looking at sort of emerging technologies such as machine learning and other aspects of artificial intelligence. We see artificial intelligence, especially machine learning and even deeper going into the deep learning, as critical to our strategic aims of providing optimal health, exceptional experience, and also maintaining organizational vitality. We see it as the key to driving for our patients better care, improving outcomes, and keeping them healthy. But also on the business side, we also see it as key to driving dramatic operational efficiencies, lowering our cost of care, as well as remaining competitive in our market and finding new revenue streams.
Great, thanks for that. Liz, would you like to give us a similar overview about Atrium Health?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. I'm Liz Popwell, and I work with Atrium Health. We are formerly known as Carolina's Healthcare System. We are over 40 hospitals in North and South Carolina and have recently added hospitals in the Georgia area, Georgia market. We've got 65,000 teammates across those states, 30 urgent cares, 35 ERs, 25 plus, actually 27 cancer care locations, over 3,000 employed physicians. We are a $10.2 billion net operating revenue organization. The numbers on the slides are a little bit dated, but you can see $2.9 billion in the last 5 years have been invested into renovations, equipment, new technologies, and innovation. On the next slide, we talk a little bit about our specific organization. We're a non-for-profit healthcare system, so we give back to the community through community benefit, $5.6 million each and every day that we are in operation. We have over 31,000 patient encounters, every one for every 3 seconds. You can see our visit volumes are quite extensive, and we have millions of patient encounters each year. So we're a pretty broad healthcare system. We have hospitals all the way from quaternary tertiary centers with academic affiliations all the way down to critical access hospitals in our portfolio. So pretty broad array of healthcare services across the Carolinas.
Great, thanks for that. I think with both of your experiences, both as practitioners and also with your unique healthcare systems, it should lead to a great discussion. And as we look to set up the discussion, we wanted to take a few minutes to just talk about the industry as a whole. What are we seeing with worldwide healthcare industry? Where are we seeing opportunities for innovation? We saw that both companies are looking to make vast investments in improving both physical facilities, but also the underlying infrastructure and operational aspects of that. So I thought I would just highlight this slide. I found it pretty interesting. In 2017, IDC, which is one of the leading industry analysts, came out with their chart around where do they really see the healthcare industry going? What are some big movements? As you can see on the left side, digital mobile engagement is just something constant, which we're doing. And then going more into, are there opportunities within blockchain, robotics, more digital healthcare service, embedded applications? I think with the world of devices and Moore's Law and more technology being put into smaller and smaller devices, generating more and more signals, the Internet of Things is becoming a really important phenomenon. And we've seen interesting use cases here at Workday, just where customers have Internet of Things or RFID to help them with procurement and supply out and stock outs as well. So just how is IoT really going to reshape the healthcare industry? And then we go into more of the longer term thinkings around data as well, and also just the continuous mind, which we have to keep at our forefront, is how do we make sure everything's secure? We don't, with all this information flying back and forth, we really do want to protect confidentiality of everybody involved, whether it's the employees within our systems, but also our patients as well, and also our supplier vendors, because we don't really want to give up any unique competitive differentiation to the market. So as a whole, there really are a lot of different places where machine learning is going to be able to help our industries out. And it's really going to come down to, and one of the discussion points I hope to discuss with our panelists is, how do you start? Where do you start with machine learning, and where do you take it to for the next level? Because there just seems to be so much out there. Building around the question of where do you start, my friends at Accenture came up with this great slide around what could be the top 10 AI applications. And again, there's so much out here. There's stuff you can do today, and there's near future. There's stuff which you're building to for tomorrow as well. There's stuff which we just have to get comfortable with, and it seems to run the gamut. And each one corresponds with large market potential, but also large ways for savings and to make each one of our providers more efficient in the market. Just to start here, I wanted to take a pause. I know there's a lot of discussion in the industry today. What's the difference between AI and machine learning? Are they synonymous? Are they different? How do we really think about that in the world? And I think the best way to think about it is kind of as an evolution story. When you think about it, first off, cloud platforms gave people lots of scalability. It enabled people to do a lot more. Then with Steve Jobs and his ideation and genius, we were able to do a lot more with mobile. The phones we have right now in our pockets are probably more powerful than the computers we were working on 5 to 10 years ago. This all generates vast amount of data. And now you take this data and you're like, well, what's the best way for me to understand what's going on? Because there's no way a human could look into it. This is really the story of machine learning. If we're able to take these vast amount of data, which is being generated by these devices, then are we able to also at the same time take that idea of compute, or the fact that today computers can do over 1 billion transactions in 1 second. If we take that transactional computational ability against the data set, are we able to derive patterns? Patterns is really machine learning. It's making the system smarter. And once those systems are smarter in a way that they're able to see patterns and they're able to do some predictions, then they can move forward and say, how do we make it even more smarter with artificial intelligence? How do we identify stuff before it's even going to happen? And I think that's the new world. But today, right now, we're just trying to become better at identifying those patterns and really going forward with the predictions. For anybody who's really interested in the space, I highly recommend Prediction Machines. It was written by two PhDs out of the University of Toronto. It's really the idea around we're in the early innings of this ML AI story and how you can get a grasp around it and also be able to engage with internal stakeholders at your businesses. So again, Prediction Machines is a book that I highly recommend. So as we think about machine learning and AI, how do we focus our thoughts? How do we really think about where the industry should go and how do we do it and how do we implement it? One frame I like to think about is in 3 ways: augment, accelerate, and assist. Because not only is it a way to think about what's the goal of the project, but it's also a way to think about how are you engaging at the right level of your organization. Let's start with augment. This is the idea, which I mentioned earlier, vast amounts of data. So how do I give myself that little extra brain boost to give it? Imagine it as the Red Bull or the caffeine in the morning, which we need to get started. How do I get that extra help to really understand the data, detect patterns, find insights, and recommend actions? Some applications which are more tangible around this is if I have a learning system, how do I ensure that I'm getting the right learning recommendations to my employees? Or if I'm a manager with over 100 employees, how do I work to identify which employees may leave me so that I can take preventive action, especially if they're the ones I want to keep? This is really at your C-suite, senior manager level. You're trying to let them be more efficient with their time by augmenting their analysis. Then we come to the story around accelerate. How do we streamline administrative tasks? We all want to flip the paradigm, right? You want to spend less time doing data prep and manual entry and more time doing strategic analysis. Really the fun work we love, which shouldn't be 20% of our day, but it should be more 80%. So let's streamline the work. Let's improve our accuracy. Here, great technologies around OCR or the scanning of receipts to find information. Also the ability to look at videos and do automatic video transcription are really trying to accelerate the way we get work done. Lastly, assist. I think the best examples here are really those which resonate with our line level employees. How do we make them more efficient? How do we make it so that they're able to do their work better so that they can serve their stakeholders in a much more efficient way? The consumer world is way ahead on this one. If you think about it, what Google's done with OK Google, Amazon with Alexa, Apple with Siri, just the ability to ask a question and to get an instant response. This could be a virtual assistant where you type in a question to a system and you receive a response. Or it's knowing the next 3 or 4 tasks which you're going to navigate to on a screen and making that more prevalent, making that more apparent in the front systems. This is really the key story around assist. We really want to be able to think about where is an employee wanting to go and how do we improve that experience so that they're able to do it faster and more efficiently. Because if we're able to help them there, it's really going to be able to make everybody a happier employee and also provide better incentives and better care to our key stakeholders. So augment, accelerate, assist. It's an easy way to position machine learning, but also it's an easy way to know who are you trying to reach with any one of the projects you want to go out on. So this is what I like to call the little nerdy bit around machine learning development. I think trying to understand how machine learning is built and AI is built is key to being even to successfully implement machine learning. So if you think about it, we started out the story with data. There really is a large amount of data out there. Data science is the idea of trying to find the signal between the noise. If you go out there, we have data scientists and statisticians who are putting multiple different models and algorithms against the data to identify where's the right signal and where's that going to provide a really good business outcome. The next, there's the AI ML platform, or how are we taking what we identify in data science and being actually able to build that into awesome machine learning products. Lastly, there's the application layer. So now we've built these machine learning products. How are we surfacing that to our customers? Is it through dashboards? Is it through notifications on their mobile phone? Is it through engagement with an assistant or a talk chat? This is when you take the development of the AI ML and you actually embed it in a way that people are interacting with it. But the one thing which is different about machine learning and artificial intelligence we've seen talking to customers, developers, researchers, is the fact that once we build it, it's not done. It's not like the Pantheon or the Acropolis where everybody can come and see its beauty. It's more evolving. You need to continuously feed it with data. You need to continuously feed it and tune it because our businesses are evolving and we always need to make it present. The worst thing is going to be building something based on machine learning, not figuring out a way to nurture it, and in 6 to 8 months it becoming stale. Because you made such a large investment in the ideas that if it becomes stale, you're not really able to take it to the next level. I like to think of machine learning more as the Sagrada Familia, where it's never-ending art. Gaudi missed seeing the end of it, and I'm sure the architects today may not get to see the end of it either, but we all know that over time it's going to continuously evolve and get better. And that's really the goal. Think of it as like a garden. So now as we think about machine learning, we really want to engage with our panelists around their views around machine learning. What are ways that they've implemented machine learning within their businesses and also where they want to go from there. So we're going to split the discussion into 3 parts and we're going to kick this off right away, and we encourage you to drop in questions so we can pick those up towards the end as well. So let's start off with Kristen first. You lead an interesting org at Christiana Care. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you view your charter? And then what advice do you have for the audience in terms of getting machine learning projects started?
Sure. So my area, the Cloud Innovation Lab, we're actually focused on driving innovation with our strategic cloud partners. So looking to really explore sort of emerging technologies, figure out where there are going to be deep impacts to our business, and work with those vendors to be able to take advantage of that and move faster. Our mission overall is to make sure that we are focusing on real problems and really looking at those deeper impacts. As far as getting started in machine learning, I would say we have a lot of lessons learned. I would say right off the bat, think about your data strategy. That first and foremost. What is it? What is your ultimate end game? What are you trying to get out of this data in the long term? Are you setting up your system the right way? Where does that data need to reside? Where am I getting it from? Not only sort of internally, but what are the external data sources that I want to bring in for this data? 2, I would say move faster, right? Here our innovation lab is going to be somewhat separated from our regular technology departments. We are taking resources, we're dedicating them, keeping them away from sort of the regular operational duties to be able to focus on these initiatives. Change management is another huge one. I know we always think that change management is something that gets understated, but I would say even more so in these initiatives. If every time you mention sort of artificial intelligence or machine learning or neural networks, I think most people that I talk to, the idea of the movie Terminator kind of pops in their head, and it's like, oh no, machines are taking over the world, and what is this going to do to my job, right? Am I being rendered useless? And, I think that is something that we need to address upfront from the very, very beginning, much earlier than maybe you do for other initiatives. We've certainly run across where people think immediately that that's going to mean they're going to lose their jobs, or, they're not going to do what they did before. And what we need to do is sort of help them realize that, the machine learning that we're putting in place is really about sort of removing sort of those less value-added tasks and allowing them to do their job better, right? Where can we utilize them to get the most value and make their job more meaningful as well? I would say build your machine learning with the mindset of building trust itself in the predictions and the recommendations that it's going to make. I like to think of this sort of as, Google Maps, right? So Google Maps tells me to take a route differently than I normally take. I sort of automatically question why, right? And the transparency of being able to see the traffic patterns, right? What's red, yellow, and green, sort of puts my mind at ease that the system is taking all of that into account. And so I think when you look at clinical decision making, you need to be able to build the system so it's providing that level of insight to people so that they feel comfortable as you sort of roll out your machine learning initiative. For, I would say, strong alignment, and that seems like as well something that's sort of obvious, but here more than ever, you are truly disrupting. You're going against potentially your corporate norms or your corporate culture. You are going to need really support at your highest levels and very strong support to make sure that you're successful.
Great. So Liz, same question to you as a strategy leader at Atrium. How do you view your charter related to machine learning?
Yeah, this is a great question for all of us to really think about and consider. And as a strategist, we work very closely with our IS folks and with our leaders to really think about a couple of components as we think about machine learning and technology applications. We always, in the organization, think about three main components when we look at the application of anything, really, whether it be a strategy, whether it be a specific technology, whether it be a piece of equipment, et cetera. So we look at people. What is the impact of the project or the impact of the technology we're getting ready to look at? How does that impact people, their workflow, whether it be physician workflow, whether it be back office workflow, and how do the people interact with whatever solution set we're looking at? Then we also look at process. What are the processes and the workflows that support the application of any kind of technology or strategy? And then what are the technological needs and technological components? So people, process, technology are the three key things that we look at in terms of criteria for managing our projects and our processes. We also talk about scalability and ability to deploy. Being a large, complex healthcare system, that's a good thing in terms of it gives us a lot of different venues to try different strategies, try different technologies, but it also creates some unique challenges when you're trying to deploy across different platforms as well as different structures. And so we're always interested in making sure we've got strategic component to the work that we're trying to do, quality component when we start talking about machine learning as well as AI, and how does it advance our strategies, how does it advance our mission, how does it help us to really support our academic models. There's lots of applications and examples we'll talk about there. But we really look at, first and foremost, what is the problem we're trying to solve? There's a lot of great technology and a lot of great applications out there, but we want to make sure we're not chasing that shiny red ball. We want to make sure that we've got a true problem and a business case to solve. And once we have developed an appropriate business case, scoping that in terms of what people, what processes, what technologies, looking at the upside risk, looking at the downside risk, and really thinking about, the long-term application of any solution we're going to put in place. And then again, that scalability component is very important to us.
So, Liz, I wanted to hit on a point there, and then Kristen, I'll come to you. Both of you I think, hit the nail on the head with change management and how you represent such large organizations. Who's bringing you the business problem around how do we solve this with machine learning or AI? And then how are you thinking about, well, how am I going to roll this out to my organization?
So for us at Atrium Health, it can come from a variety of different sources. We've got some wonderful experts in our information systems group who work with us and work with our operational and service line leaders to really talk through what are some of the applications of the future. We've got physician leaders who sometimes might learn of different solutions to different problems, clinical problems they may have. They might bring ideas to the table. We have a process where through our strategic services group, each year as we refresh our strategy, we really look at these types of projects and these things, and we really look at, where's the alignment needed, and we can bubble up ideas from anywhere really in the organization, but testing again that business case and the viability of it, that's really done in my shop from a strategic perspective, and in IS from a technology perspective. And then there's some academic components. There's a group there as well if there's applications in those areas. But we have key experts across the organization that we leverage that have real-time experience working with patients and or the clinical and or operational processes. And we really leverage their knowledge before we make decisions like this.
Great. Kristen, how about yourself?
We're very similar in a lot of ways. We certainly get ideas from across the hospital system. In some cases, it's from leadership. It may be from more direct line individuals, or it may be through, our business relationship managers in IT, for example. The innovation that we have here at Christiana, it's not just limited to my innovation lab. We are looking at that as sort of a corporate-wide imperative. So there are pockets of innovation going on throughout the organization. Where it involves things like machine learning, it all ties back into IT, and we certainly help them with their implementation as well as sort of the rollout once it's deemed to have value. As far as rolling it out to the rest of the organization, I think we do a pretty good job of making sure that we identify up front, the true value of that proposed solution. Is it something that really speaks to our strategic aims? Is it going in the direction that our company wants to go to? Is it, worth the resources that we're going to put into it? And then will it end up being adopted, right? And so the last thing you want to do is sort of create an initiative based on an idea that maybe has value in one particular area. But if you're really looking to get the value out of it, will it be able to scale across? And, or will it just sort of die alone on the vine and just become this, this thing that's sort of left to rot? And certainly there's a graveyard of those. I like to think we're sort of getting better at that. We certainly utilize our technology folks, our leadership, as well as our leadership across the hospital to make sure that we get lessons learned so that we're more successful as we move on.
Yeah, and I think that graveyard concept is actually pretty keen. I've spoken to a lot of customers lately, and one of their goals with machine learning and artificial intelligence, and in the same breath people say machine learning, they mention robotic process automation and new concepts like that, is they don't want to be building more technical debt or more debt on bad processes and bad systems. So though people may think machine learning is the key solution, like there is an inherent question around, did we get something wrong 5 or 10 years ago? And is it a better investment to fix that versus trying to bolt something on to try to put a Band-Aid on a situation, which we'll revisit later? And we've had multiple customers come to that and say, yeah, we could do this with this tool, but then we're just exacerbating a bad problem. And it's not going to help us compete in the marketplace. It's not going to help us better serve our stakeholders. And it's also not going to better, at the end of the day, help us serve our end consumers as well. So I think similar to what both of you said, evaluating that, but also making sure that it's not a problem which we caused ourselves, which we couldn't fix by better implementation comes up a lot. I think going back to Kristen, can you tell us about a recent problem you saw within Christiana Care, something tangible the attendees can really take back with them, and what is the problem, and like what are you doing, what did you implement to solve it, or you're thinking about implementing to solve that problem?
Sure. So we have sort of a number of initiatives going across the organization. We certainly have places where we are focusing on, looking at risk for our population and what can we do to make them healthier, to, looking at, where can we work with individual vendors to improve outcomes when they're in-house in the hospital as well. From a financial perspective, we are actually looking at using robotic processing automation within our finance department, sort of starting with accounts payable. That project is going on now. It's still a little early for us to really give some outcomes on that, but we are seeing some very positive results, enough so that we are certainly looking across our finance department to see where else that we could possibly put in RPA, around our revenue cycle, or potentially within HR, whether it's sort of automating processes with onboarding or potentially credentialing. I think one opportunity that has really sort of come to the forefront that is going to be sort of more of a game changer for us is really around business insights, around our financial data, where we stand today, being able to make those business decisions and get clear decision support reports takes us about, I would say it's about 60 to 90 days right now from the time a charge is posted. Obviously that data is quite old. When you think of, competitors in other industries like Walmart and Amazon, where they can change the price of a book that you're trying to purchase within 2 cents, multiple times a day. We don't have that level of insight to know what things cost or adapt to fluctuations in prices and costs. We see where we can sort of make improvements without machine learning, but the best we think we'll be able to get without machine learning is really more 15 to 47 day. We think if we put in machine learning, we'll be able to get to the point where it is more real time, where we feel confident based on sort of that processing of all our past history of data and understanding trends, that are based much quicker, and be able to make those decisions more in real time. So that is sort of the biggest game changer, I think, that we see on our immediate horizon.
Cool. Liz, how about for you guys? Are you guys seeing any upcoming wins, or have you just completed a victory lap on something pretty cool, which is helping your business?
Absolutely. So I'm going to focus on some of the clinical. One example that we have is in early stroke detection, and we have used some automated software that uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to really help us more rapidly process CT scans. And those CT scans, as we all have learned from public announcements, time is very important when it comes to stroke and stroke detection. And it's because that timing is so important to time to interaction with the physicians, time to intervention, can really have some significant impacts on those clinical outcomes. And so, as we all know and learn, whether we're clinical or not, time is very important to that outcome. And so CT scans, for those of you who have not seen CT scans, come with thousands and thousands of slices of images. And so it can take some time for the radiologists and other clinical staff to work through, and the neurologists to work through those and to do those reads. So we've got a process, and we've got some technology that we put in place where we've got some machine learning that allows us to actually rapidly process those CT scans, and it really gives that neurologist as well as the radiologist some vital information about how blood is flowing in the brain. It also gives some vital information on how best to intervene, And the tool is really pretty cool. It really helps to identify some of the areas where there's asymmetry and damage. So again, it looks for those patterns as we discussed in machine learning, and then it takes those patterns and then it applies it to flag things specifically to the clinician's attention so that they can more rapidly read those images and get the right interventions out for those patients. So that's one great example. Other clinical examples that we've used are really around some of our research, really around some of our measurement systems when it comes to measuring lesions, for example, for clinical patients. It's very important in terms of tracking progress, good progress or bad progress, and then again allowing for not just for research purposes, but also for oncology patients for their treatment plans and treatment protocols. So we've used a lot of different types of applications like that, whether it be imaging, whether it be consistent measurements for oncology, critical findings and research parameters. We've had some great examples where we've used machine learning to help us with those types of situations, again, just to improve clinical quality and clinical care.
Pretty fascinating. I think both of your examples definitely have deep impacts to your business today. And before we get to the question around how do you measure the ROI, a lot of this stuff just involves data. And just walk us through a little bit around how you view data integrity, and then also like how are you bringing in the stewards of data or the people who, I think stewards of data is the best term. Like, how are you engaging with them around making them comfortable and then really rolling out these initiatives? Liz, we can start with you on that one.
Sure. So we have a pretty robust process, again, where through our key leadership meetings, our IT folks, with our physicians, we really bring together multidisciplinary teams to talk through data integrity, to talk through applications, to really think through, again, those people, processes, and the technology. That's why, the people and processes are just as important as the technological solution. And in that is some of the data integrity components. We've got a really robust process that we use where we test things and pilot things to make sure we feel good about the algorithms and feel good about the models that are used, make sure that the data integrity is there when we can improve it. We all have data integrity issues across the industry, so we're constantly learning and focusing on how to make the data better and better and better. So just, again, through that multidisciplinary collaborative process is how we really focus the most, and through those experts out there taking care of patients and actually working with the data and working with the outputs of these types of systems, that's really where we get the feedback to make it better.
Great. Kristen, do you have any insights in that area around data integrity?
We're very similar. We have certainly had our issues over data integrity in the past. We've, have now become much more mature around it, and actually have people dedicated to making sure that we maintain our data integrity. It's very important as we sort of, look to these systems and to pull their data in, that we are bringing in those experts from those systems that can clearly, make sure that we are making the right decisions, and that we are sort of passing that information in the right way. There is sort of, quite a bit of governance around that. We are looking to figure out how we can potentially streamline that as well, because, we're trying to move faster and be more agile as it is. But you certainly don't want to do that at the expense of not getting the data right. So I think, providing that sort of goes back to, understanding what your data strategy is from the very beginning, and then making sure that you are focusing on that with your end game in mind.
Yeah. I have a recent customer anecdote around those stories as well. We had a customer who's really trying to do stuff more about their internal employees, making sure they're identifying the right opportunities for them. And it's actually a pretty tough task because they've asked their employees to go in and put in skills in the system and tell us what you're really good at. And most employees do that, but people are kind of shy and they don't want to be boastful. So now the team is looking at technologies around how do we do natural language processing, maybe around their resume or around feedback they're receiving from their peers and supervisors to pull out skills which they may not be showcasing as much. And so if you kind of have the self-identified skills along with the generated skills through machine learning, you're kind of able to get this better view of your employees. And once you have that skills-based view, the customer was telling me how they're really able to begin to say, okay, I have this person here and I have this opportunity coming up and it's kind of on the same trajectory. So maybe we can provide them some training and get them into that new role. It helps with their career planning, their career development. It shows them progress. And it's really a smart way to be able to use data, machine learning to provide career opportunities, because we all spend a lot of money trying to hire these employees, and we train them and get them to believe in our core values and our beliefs, and we don't want to lose them quickly without really gaining that investment, especially if we like them and if they enjoy the company as well. So we've seen a lot of customers in this space just trying to say, how do I do better for my employees? I have all this data, I have all these opportunities, we're growing at such a large scale that I need to be able to provide them with opportunities. And then if I can't provide them or if they're not the right fit, let me look externally and augmenting that with learning as well. Because I think as knowledge workers, we're all in this stage of continuous learning and continuous development. So a really interesting story that just came up from a customer. So to both the participants, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, just to kind of add to that, especially if we're looking to sort of take advantage of all the data that's out there, right? Especially data that's external to us, whether it's coming in from, other companies that we're not partnered with, right, that we're bringing in, or whether it is self-reported data or self-inputted data from a patient at home. There is value in that data, but there certainly is a risk that maybe it's not accurate, right? Or they are maybe with patients, they don't want to say what their real weight might be. I think as we kind of look at that, you have to figure out where is the benefit of taking advantage of that value. What is the amount, of risk that you take with accepting that data, and where do you sort of balance that risk with the algorithms? If you're trying to come up, for example, like a risk score around an individual, it's certainly, the data itself, I think, provides enough value that you don't want to ignore it completely just because you may not be able to trust some of it. It's really just being smart about where that is sort of, that data can be taken along with sort of more validated data.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it goes back to that earlier slide where it's not a replacement for the answer, but it's just augmenting the answer. It's trying to provide that little extra insight so you can feel more confident in whatever the outcome is. But also it comes down to everybody being leaders in their organization, knowing their space, knowing their people, and putting everything that comes forward through a gut check before actually taking action on it. As we go, from what I understand, most machine learning and AI projects are looked at as investments. And I think both of you explained that pretty well, that your leaders are coming to you to make these investments in your business to stay competitive. But part of having an investment is being able to measure the ROI. Starting with yourself, Kristen, how do you measure the ROI of these projects?
Sorry, this is Kristen. I dropped for just a second, but I'm back on.
No. The question was, as you think about these projects and these initiatives, how do you, at the end of the year when you want to do that review, how are you measuring the ROI of these projects?
Yeah, so I think some, can be kind of easy. If you're looking at sort of, the RPA work we're doing in accounts payable, we can certainly look at, where have we removed repetitive processes, where have we gained efficiencies, what are the hours saved that we've gotten from there. From a clinical perspective, you can look at the patient outcomes. I think it really depends on the use case. But from a higher level, we know that the investment into machine learning is what we need to focus on to be able to actually reach where we want to go with our strategic aims, right? So whether it's, lowering my cost of care and providing more meaningful interactions to provide a better, exceptional experience for my patients and my community members, or whether I'm improving the health of my population, keeping them out of the hospitals to begin with, but if they do have to come to the hospital, how do I make sure I've made the right decisions to make sure that they're coming out and they're going to be, as healthy as I can make them. And from how do I maintain my optimal organizational vitality? How do I become, in this market with everything changing, how do I maintain a competitive advantage? Especially when you're looking at the fact that we are no longer sort of regionally contained, competition sort of in the past, and you're sort of whoever's down the road is your competitor. And that's not necessarily the case anymore. As we look at advancements in technology and how rapidly it's changing, it's opening up our marketplace and it's really changing the rules. And so when we look at sort of ROI, we're looking at that long term, that really to continue to thrive and make it through these changes, we need to take some drastic innovation changes. We need to do something more than what we're doing today and really change sort of how we look at our business. And we see machine learning as really a key to driving that. Great.
Liz, how about yourself?
So, same thing here at Atrium Health. We look at a lot of the same things that Kristen talked about. We look at, first and foremost, how does this align to our strategic, our strategy is called a strategy map. So how does this align to our strategic roadmap? It could align from a return on investment perspective to something that has an accretive growth component. It could align to something that has more of a population health, improved lives focus. Or, as Kristen talked about with her organization, it could also align to more of the cost of care and making care more affordable for patients and communities. So we take a strategic lens at it, and then it's really about making sure we've got a good, robust process for understanding the strategic assumptions as well as the operational assumptions, making sure we've got a good comprehensive view of the true cost of the particular project, making sure that we include in there more than just the technology or the IT or the equipment components, but also, again, back to the people, the training time for our employees, process changes, workflow changes, and just making sure that we've got a good comprehensive view. And again, just like Kristen talked about in her organization, we also take a long-term view, 5 to 10 years for that return on investment, and really thinking about, is this going to advance the strategy of the organization? Is it going to provide us a great launch point for the future and a great platform for the next level of care, as well as health and hope for our patients and their communities, basically.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. I think bringing this to a close, we've definitely been able to highlight some of the questions asked by the audience as well. So I wanted to thank everybody for participating before we go to our last question, which is really around the idea, and Liz, we'll start with you. Where do you think machine learning will have the most impact for your organization in the long term? Or another way to think about it, what's that wish list item which is coming in 5 to 10 years, which you just wish would come sooner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are so many different applications and so many different things that we could be thinking about. I think, again, as a strategist, I think, kind of outside of the box and long term. And I think the thing that's intriguing for me is, again, on that clinical side and that clinical equation, I'm curious to see how genomics and machine learning are going to come together to really form into more of AI and really look at, genomics has become mainstream now, and we use it a lot for making sure we've got cancer patients, for example, on the right clinical protocols. And I'm just excited for the future in terms of how examples like that might come out of, again, that genomics component and how that might help us really look toward prevention and really get more proactive with patient care in the future. So I don't have a specific example other than I'm really curious to see how that will clinically be applied over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Awesome. Kristen, how about yourself?
I think for us, it is going even farther into the machine learning, down into the deep learning part of machine learning, right? When is it that we'll actually be able to have it think for itself in some ways, right? And I think the difference is it's kind of like if you think about car technology today, we kind of started with just being excited that we could get maps online, right? And then being able to get directions to go someplace, right? And then sort of the next step was sort of that more machine learning, which was sort of that continuous monitoring and telling me what is the best way to go, right? And changing it based on traffic. And I think the next step is you know what, just take me there. And that's the automation of the self-driving cars. And I'm looking forward to that version of healthcare where, I think right now we are still sort of in the data gatherers. We're just excited that we have data and sometimes we can get some insights from it. The machine learning will certainly take us to the next stage of hopefully being able to parse through, billion data points and be able to show us where true correlations are, or if there's anomalies, what was the reason for the anomalies, and get us to the point where maybe it's able to help us with predictions and maybe even suggest things for us. But taking it even further and saying, okay, now I can trust that the system can learn from itself and be able to make those changes, and I'm more sort of keeping an eye on it, right? And I think that's when we'll be able to really use our resources, the finite resource that we have, to be able to support expanding and being able to support, our population with much more meaningful interaction. So that's ultimately what I'm excited about seeing.
Awesome. Well, that concludes our webinar today. Again, I think the part which I'm most excited about is when machine learning and AI touches everybody, whether it's just on the clinical side and it's all the different layers of our internal organizations and operations. Machine learning isn't really for a singular persona, but it should really impact positively every single person in the business's impact. And I think that's really going to be the key of machine learning in the future. So with that, I wanted to thank everybody for spending their last hour with us. The content will be coming out soon. Again, I highly recommend Prediction Machines as a book to read if you want to learn more about the space. And we look forward to engaging with you soon, and have a great afternoon or evening for everybody who's leaving, and have a great lunch for everybody else. Thank you.